The morning sun slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Grand Point Ballet Academy's main studio, casting long rays across the polished maple floor. Rows of white lockers lined the walls, their surfaces chipped from years of point shoe scraping. In one corner, a battered wooden bar ran the length of the mirrored wall, reflecting the hopeful faces of dozens of young dancers in pale pink leotards and crisp tights. Ariana Brooks stood at the edge of the bar, heart pounding beneath her burgundy wrap sweater. She had arrived an hour early, nerves jangling as she adjusted the ribbons of her well-worn new point shoes. Each pair bore the scuff marks of 6 years of rigorous training. Before dawn classes, weekend intensives, summer intensives at distant studios. Born in a predominantly white suburb and one of the only black students in every program, she'd learned to speak ballet in a code that transcended skin tone. Pliés, tendus, and a flawless epaulement that whispered of discipline and grace. At precisely 9 a.m., the white-coated audition assistants tapped their clipboards and called, "Next." Ariana stepped onto the floor, her skirt swishing around her hips. Across from her sat Natalie Sinclair, the Academy's chief choreographer, flanked by two junior instructors, all three white, all peering through their wire-rimmed glasses as if measuring every millimeter of bone and muscle. Natalie's silver blonde hair was pulled into a severe bun, a wispy strand betraying her tension. "Begin your variation," Natalie commanded. Ariana inhaled deeply, centering herself. The recording of Swan Lake's Act II Adagio filled the studio with Tchaikovsky's haunting strings. She lifted into an attitude at 45 degrees, her back elongated, her supporting leg firm. She swept through a series of arabesque balances, 5 counts each pose held long enough to convey both strength and sorrow. Her arms curved in a perfect port de bras, fingertips trailing imaginary water. She glided into a series of controlled fouettes, 32 revolutions on point, each turn crisp, her eye fixed on a distant point in the mirror to maintain perfect balance. Halfway through her variation, Ariana added a quiet flourish drawn from contemporary lines, a low développé into a slide across the floor, her torso arched, chest open. The movement was unexpected, a subtle challenge to classical decorum that nevertheless flowed from her core training. She rose on point, completed the phrase with a sharp échappé, then softened into a final reverence, head bowed, arms folded elegantly. Silence rippled across the studio. Natalie's face betrayed nothing as she tapped her pen against the clipboard. The two junior instructors exchanged a glance, but neither offered feedback. "Thank you, Ms. Brooks," Natalie said at last, voice steady. "We will review all candidates and post the casting list this afternoon." Ariana nodded, voice caught in her throat. She stepped away from the bar and began to slip off her ribbons when Natalie called, "Ariana," but then paused. Ariana turned, hope flickering in her chest. "Your technique is solid," Natalie said, choosing each word. "But we're going in a different direction for Odette. We need someone with a more ethereal quality for this production." A single breath escaped Ariana's lips. "Understood," she managed, forcing a smile. Natalie offered a polite nod before turning back to the clipboard. Ariana gathered her sweater around her, wrists trembling, and slipped into the hallway. The studio door clicked shut behind her, muffling the soft plié, tendu, jeté murmurs of the next auditionee. Down the corridor, she passed groups of white dancers embracing one another, congratulating Emily Carter, tall, blonde, and radiant, who'd already learned she'd won the lead. Ariana's chest tightened as she watched Emily lift into a rehearsed pirouette, the mirror's reflection bending light around her. Each step felt heavy, as though the wrap sweater around Ariana's torso had become a straitjacket. Yet beneath the sting of rejection, a spark ignited. She pressed a hand to the cold metal of her locker, feeling the chill of disappointment, and vowed that if they would not cast her on their terms, she would find a way to make them see her brilliance on her own. Back in her tiny studio apartment above the cafe, Ariana sank onto the edge of her narrow bed as the golden afternoon light slipped through the worn curtains. She could still feel the hollow ache in her chest from Natalie Sinclair's measured dismissal, the words, "more ethereal quality," echoing like a taunt. Around her, the faded rose-patterned wallpaper and the single framed photo of her first ballet recital stared back, reminders of every triumph and setback she'd weathered. She peeled off her burgundy wrap sweater and tossed it across the mattress, revealing the pale pink leotard she'd worn that morning. Her muscles trembled, not from exertion but from raw disappointment. Instead of collapsing into self-pity, Ariana rose and crossed to the makeshift bar she'd installed last summer. She flexed her arches in her battered point shoes, the satin ribbons fraying at the edges, and stared at her reflection in the chipped full-length mirror. With a quiet exhale, she raised her right leg into an attitude and held it, feeling every fiber of her thigh burn, every fiber of her core engage. Doubt threatened again. Did she truly lack the lightness they craved? But the ache of unanswered ambition steeled her resolve. She lowered her leg and, in one fluid motion, launched into a freshly improvised choreography. A rapid series of sautés, glissés across the floor, each jump punctuated by a crisp arm line borrowed from contemporary dance. She rolled through a sequence of a grand jeté into a controlled tombé, then spun into a counterbalance arabesque that tested her balance like never before. She repeated the routine, sweat beading at her hairline, until her calves trembled and her breathing came in short gasps. Then, as dusk filtered in deeper orange hues, she pulled out her phone and played back the video of her solo. A visceral 45 seconds of classical precision fused with street dance flair. She watched the expression on her own face, fierce, unrestrained, and felt a surge of conviction. If the Academy wouldn't showcase her innovation, she would unveil it on her own stage. Ariana closed her eyes, crafting every nuance of her plan in that silent apartment. The music remixes she would need, the hidden rehearsal spaces, the network of dancers, white and black, who would follow her lead. As the final embers of daylight faded, she slipped into her gym shorts and jogged in place, heart pounding with purpose. The world would soon see a side of her that no audition panel could ignore. That evening at 7 p.m. sharp, Ariana slipped back into Studio E, its mirrored walls now lined with rows of sleek white ballet slippers she'd never felt welcome to wear. The overhead fluorescent lights hummed as she approached the bar where Natalie Sinclair's Corps de Ballet rehearsed their bar work. She tapped Emily Carter, fresh from her lead announcement, on the shoulder and motioned toward the empty corner of the studio. "Can I borrow the Corps for a special project?" Ariana asked quietly, heart pounding under her wrap sweater. Emily's pale blue eyes widened in surprise. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, voice low. Ariana laid out the plan. A guerrilla flash mob in Union Plaza during the intermission of the upcoming gala, showcasing a fusion routine that blended Ariana's classical strengths with dynamic contemporary moves. She needed 12 core members, white dancers known for their precision, to learn her choreography in secret, then execute it flawlessly in public. A ripple of curiosity spread through the studio. Claire Benson, a white senior core member with a fierce attitude and crisp footwork, stepped forward first. "I'll do it," she said, voice firm. "Give me the details." Next came Ben Hawkins, the lanky soloist known for his jumps, who offered to handle video filming. Sophie Lang, the white understudy who had once scoffed at Ariana's street flair, stepped up with surprising enthusiasm. "I'll learn your transitions." Within 15 minutes, Ariana had her core team of 12. Claire, Ben, Sophie, 3 more white women from the Corps, and 5 white male dancers she'd handpicked for their adaptability. They moved to the far end of the studio, clearing space behind the portable piano. Ariana played the remixed Tchaikovsky track on her phone, an urgent beat beneath the familiar melody. She demonstrated the sequence: a tight battement into a sweeping développé, a staccato series of petit allegro, then a bold contemporary slide into arabesque. The Corps watched, rapt, as Ariana broke down each count. 5, 6, 7, 8, plie, launch, land, extension. Claire asked about arm placement during the slide. Sophie nailed the final pirouette on her first try, and Ben filmed each run on his phone for later review. By 9 p.m., sweat and excitement mingled on every forehead. They set their rehearsal schedule, secret midnight sessions at the empty theater stage, codenamed Operation Swan Riot, and exchanged hushed contact lists. As they filed out of the studio into the cool night air, Ariana felt the electricity of collective belief. A white ensemble had rallied to her vision, ready to bring her undeniable talent into the spotlight they'd tried to conceal. The following afternoon, under a slate-gray sky, Ariana gathered her 12 white collaborators in the cavernous rehearsal hall of Capital City Theater, its grand proscenium arch looming overhead and rows of empty seats stretching into shadow. Blank placards at the back announced Swan Lake Gala, Intermission Entertainment, and beneath them, Ariana taped her hand-drawn map of Union Plaza onto the bulletin board. The plaza's smooth granite pavers and twin fountains, always teeming with midday crowds, would become their stage. A hush fell as Ariana pointed to the diagram. "We'll blend in with the audience until intermission," she explained, voice low but carrying. "When the clock strikes 8:45 p.m., I'll emerge through the east stage door in my rehearsal tutu. Ben will start the music with his hidden speaker pack. At my signal," she tapped her wristwatch, "you'll step forward from the crowd in classical port de bras. Then we transition into the fusion sequence. Chassis spirals into attitude passes, slide turns into fouettes, finishing with the grand jeté finale centered by me." Claire Benson, clipboard in hand, sketched the entry points. 6 dancers approaching from the north fountain, 6 from the south promenade. Routes invisible until the moment of bloom. Sophie Lang asked about spacing. "What if someone in the crowd blocks my diagonal?" Ariana nodded, showing a backup route. "If the north corridor's full, circle behind the east hedge and join in on count 8. Every contingency, bystander interference, security patrols, changing light angles, was mapped out in crisp black ink. Next, Ariana assigned roles. Claire and Sophie would cue neighboring dancers when to move. Ben tested his concealed Bluetooth transmitter inside his blazer pocket. 2 dancers would play crowd with reusable champagne flutes, interspersed like living props. As dusk darkened the hall, they ran through the full 2-minute routine on the stage itself, stepping from red velvet curtains onto the polished floor beneath the gilded chandelier. Each arabesque line and pirouette was timed to Ben's demo track, a seamless remix of the Swan Lake theme with a modern beat. When the final pose, a suspended grand jeté held in perfect stillness, elicited goosebumps, the group erupted in applause and nervous laughter. Casting a quick eye toward the security office's windowed control booth, Ariana reminded them, "No rehearsal out there until next Tuesday night. Until then, keep it tight." They all nodded, a pact sealed in whispered excitement. As they filed out, the theater doors closed behind them like a vault, leaving the empty seats and dark stage behind. Silent witnesses to the secret that would soon explode into Union Plaza, demanding the world's attention and Ariana's rightful place in the spotlight. On the night of the gala, Union Plaza lay hushed beneath a canopy of string lights, and the soft murmur of champagne-clad patrons drifting out of the theater's grand arches. It was 8:45 p.m. on the dot when Ariana Brooks, swathed in a pale pink rehearsal tutu and satin point shoes, slipped through the stage door. A single spotlight rigged behind the foyer cast her silhouette onto the plaza's cobblestones. At her signal, a sharp raise of her arm, the first strains of her remixed Swan Lake track pulsed from Ben Hawkins's concealed Bluetooth speaker, clipped to a white corps de ballet dancer's belt. In an instant, 12 white dancers emerged from the crowd. Claire Benson's crisp échappés, Sophie Lang's pointed développés, the men's soaring grand jetés. They moved as one across the square, arms curved in regal port de bras, feet gliding in precise glissés, before seamlessly shifting into Ariana's signature fusion sequence. Rapid-fire petit allegro, punctuated by street dance slides, each pirouette snapping tight and each high ballet landing with quiet authority. Spectators froze mid-sip, champagne glasses trembling at their lips. The plaza's fountain water seemed to hold its breath as Ariana whipped into her 2-minute solo. A bold combination of grand rond de jambe, a sudden knee slide into attitude, and a heart-stopping chain of 32 fouettes that held the collective gaze of every onlooker. At the final note, the echo of a modern bass drop intertwined with Tchaikovsky's violin swell, she struck her last arabesque pose, backlit by the theater's warm floodlights. Silence held for a heartbeat. Then an explosion of cheers and applause shattered the night. All around, white onlookers raised their phones, screens glowing as the performance streamed live through social feeds. Within seconds, Ariana flash mob lit up Twitter and Instagram. A white news van screeched to a halt on the far curb. Local anchors leapt out, cameras rolling as they captured Ariana's triumphant smile. "This is extraordinary," one reporter gasped, breathless, unannounced, unprecedented, and utterly breathtaking. Moments later, the first viral clips hit 100,000 views. White ballet bloggers live-streamed reaction cams. White fashion influencers praised Ariana's bold costume choice. White dance critics dissected every transition in GIF loop slow motion. Incredible artistry. Game changer for classical dance. Can someone sign her as soon as possible? Comments poured in from around the globe. Even Parisian ballet houses messaged inquiries. Backstage, Natalie Sinclair's assistant's phone buzzed in frantic pulses. Notifications tallied in the tens of thousands as the Academy's social media account exploded with follows and tags. In Union Plaza's Civic Fountain, white couples and families gathered for selfies, the flash mob dancers lingering among them, exchanging hugs and autographs. Ariana stepped off her makeshift stage, point shoes dusted with cobblestone grit, and was met with a white crowd's roaring ovation. Press microphones thrust forward. Drones hummed overhead, capturing the jubilant scene. As she caught her breath, Ariana spotted Natalie Sinclair arriving in the stream of admirers, eyes wide with awe, and knew that nothing in her career would ever be the same. At 10 a.m., the morning after the flash mob, Ariana Brooks crossed the threshold of the Grand Point Ballet Academy for the last time as a corps member. The reception area, its once pristine white walls, now plastered with screens showing clips of Union Plaza exploding in applause, buzzed with whispers. White students clustered around tablets, replaying Ariana's viral solo, their eyes bright with wonder and chagrin. Tutors paused mid-pitch, and the receptionist's smile faltered when she recognized Ariana's determined stride. Ariana climbed the marble steps to Natalie Sinclair's office, her heart racing but her posture unyielding. Behind the heavy oak door, she found Natalie seated behind a lacquered desk strewn with overnight analytics, engagement charts spiking to 2 million views, global press alerts, and a white-lined memo from the Academy director. Beside Natalie stood Thomas Whitaker, the Academy's white-suited artistic director, his salt and pepper hair impeccably trimmed and his arms folded across his chest. Natalie rose as Ariana entered. The stiff skirt of her aviator gray pencil suit rustled. Her white-shaded gaze softened for the first time. "Ariana," she began, voice low but sincere, Your performance last night was extraordinary." Her clipboard lay abandoned as she gestured to a blank chair. Ariana remained standing, arms at her sides, every muscle taut with pent-up conviction, as Thomas cleared his throat. "After reviewing the footage and audience response," he said, voice resonant, "the Academy's leadership has unanimously decided to extend you the role of Odette Odile for our upcoming season. We recognize that your artistry transcends traditional casting boundaries." He slid a crisp letter across the desk, the Academy's golden seal gleaming. "Here is your contract. We apologize for any doubt we cast on your talent." Ariana lifted the parchment, her gloved fingers trembling. She glanced at Natalie, whose silver bun seemed to droop in contrition. "Thank you," Ariana said, voice clear yet edged with the memory of rejection. "I hope this marks a new chapter for the Academy, where artistry is honored above heritage or height." Natalie's eyes brimmed as she nodded, reaching across the desk to squeeze Ariana's hand. "You've taught us," she whispered. Outside the office, the white corps de ballet erupted in celebration as Ariana emerged, contract in hand. Claire Benson swept her into a heartfelt embrace, while Sophie Lang produced a bouquet of pale roses and cheered. The other white dancers, some teary, some cheering, crowded around, their previous skepticism washed away by Ariana's undeniable triumph. As Ariana stood on the sunlit landing, contract sealed, she inhaled deeply. Grand Point Ballet Academy's halls, once echoing with exclusion, now pulsed with applause in her honor, and with the promise that no audition panel could ever again silence her brilliance. The Grand Point Ballet Academy's auditorium is hushed beneath a chandelier of crystal prisms as the final strains of the piano overture fade into silence. Backstage, Ariana Brooks stands in her white tutu and rose gold point shoes, heart hammering beneath her sequin-trimmed bodice. She breathes deeply, feeling the cool breeze of the stage wings flutter against her skin. The last-minute notes from her corps de ballet, Claire Benson's soft, break a leg, Sophie Lang's bright, you've got this, echo in her mind, steadying her nerves. Natalie Sinclair appears at the wing's edge, her silver bun haloed by the footlights. She offers Ariana a single, genuine smile and a nod of approval that carries more weight than any callback. On stage, the auditorium lights dim, and a single spotlight illuminates the center of the proscenium arch. Ariana steps into the glow, her chest lifted, shoulders down, every muscle poised in perfect alignment. The opening bar of Tchaikovsky's Adagio pulses through the orchestra, rich strings weaving a mournful refrain, and she lifts into her first arabesque, the line of her body extending seamlessly from fingertip to toe. In the front row, white patrons sit rapt, eyes fixed on the disciplined curve of her back and the effortless suspension of her leg. As the tempo quickens in Act 2, Ariana glides into a series of fouettes, each turn executed with a crystalline spin, her head committed to a single, unwavering focus spot. 32 revolutions later, she lands on the final demi-point, chest rising in a slow exhale that ripples through the hushed audience like a release of collective breath. Around her, the corps executes the classical ensemble patterns she once studied alone under past rejection's shadow, their white tutus swirling in harmonious ripples. During the grand pas de deux, Ariana and her partner, white principal dancer Marcus Chen, move as one through partnering lifts and intricate promenades. As he lifts her aloft for the final supported arabesque, the auditorium erupts in applause that cascades over them like warm sunlight. Ariana's gaze finds Natalie and Thomas in the front row. Natalie's eyes glisten with pride, and Thomas stands, clapping with an unguarded smile. In that moment, every silence of doubt, every whisper of not ethereal enough, is drowned beneath a tide of respect and wonder. The curtain falls on the final tableau, Ariana poised like a swan in perfect repose, and the hall explodes in a thunderous standing ovation. She curtsies into the wings, heart soaring, as the orchestra plays the dazzling finale. Backstage, the corps envelops her in a circle of white tutued hugs and cheers. Natalie steps forward, placing a delicate laurel wreath atop Ariana's head. "You found your stage," she murmurs. Ariana's lips curve into a radiant smile as she steps forward for the bows, receiving bouquets from white patrons and tears of joy from Claire and Sophie. In this decisive moment, her artistry laid bare for all to see, Ariana Brooks stands not as the dancer they once wrote off, but as the unforgettable prima whose brilliance no audition panel could ever again deny.